Hi again, everyone. I'm Ollie Matthews. This is the Narcissistic Resistance, and this resistance video is sponsored by contribution from Rapunzel, and I've done some stories for her in the past, and here is her story. Dear Ollie, it's been a while. Thank you for your insights in your last 4 videos for me. Isolationist narcissists are hiding you from the world. There are no safety nets with the narcissist-only traps. The narcissist's apology is a trip without allocution. And when you're in a narcissistic romantic relationship and don't know it, they've been very helpful. For this letter, I thought I'd give an account of some of the memories that I had blocked out for years that came to me a few months ago. It's funny how once you go no contact, things that you forgot about for years will start to pop up and reinforce your need to stay no contact. I grew up taught that anger was bad. So I am typically unable to express, feel, or even my own anger, or even own my own anger. But some of these memories that I'm about to share have brought out the rage in me, even if I have a hard time expressing it. So first off, before I went no contact, I had gone to my old house to collect some belongings while my family wasn't home. And I snapped a bunch of photos thinking that I wouldn't be back for a while or maybe ever. I took a picture of my parents' basement bookshelf where they kept a lot of their old parenting books and Christian living books. Earlier this year, while I was going through therapy and thinking about my childhood, I went back to this photo on my phone and zoomed in so I could read the titles of the books. To my surprise, the majority of the books had one name on their spines, Enzo. The authors Ezo. The authors Gary Ezo and Anne-Marie Ezo. Memories came flooding back of my parents' involvement in a curriculum called Growing Kids God's Way, and how they were group leaders for this program. They would have meetings at my house in my basement and would encourage other parents to raise kids the way they had raised me. I was used as an example to dozens of families of what a good, obedient, cheerful Christian kid should look like. Curiosity took over me, and I soon was on Google researching exactly what the Ezios taught. I was shocked to read psychologists pronounce many of their teachings as unhealthy, even saying that the Ezo way was detrimental to an infant's early brain development. The Ezos teach that parents should have complete control of their children and spank children from infancy and teach and to base their feeding schedules on the parents' whims and desires, not on the child's needs. Sounds like a narcissistic playbook to me. And that's the problem with these religious ways. All they are is masks for narcissism. These religious methods in anything are masks for for self-gratification and narcissism under the guise of Christianity or serving God. The Ezos teach that parents should have... Wait a minute, hold on. The Ezos teach that children are manipulative, selfish creatures who need to be trained out of their natural sinful ways. No, they're needy creatures that need to be taken care of. See, this book, the Ezos, I would imagine, are pure narcissists who realize, well, this sucks raising a kid. You have to train a kid from infancy to be on your schedule, not on theirs. Kind of like you would a dog or a pet. Toddlers who should naturally explore and learn boundaries are spanked and forced to submit to the parents' instructions at every turn, never learning their own autonomy or how to say no. I realized at this point in my research that when I stated that I was never allowed to say no growing up, must have been literally true. I was never allowed to say no, not once. This is also where my parents got the whole delayed obedience is disobedience mantra. Yes, if my narc mother, whoever called me from downstairs, and I came running downstairs to her beck and call, she would yell at me that she had called me 3 times, when the reality was she had only called me once. This is the same game my mother used to play with me. You're not moving fast enough. I called, no you didn't. I didn't call me 3 times. This was pure gaslighting. If I tried to tell her that I only heard her once, she'd call me a liar and tell me to go to the spanker so she could spank me. Oh yes, another memory that popped up. This book encouraged the use of a spanking tool. Yeah, like sadism. Very sexual. Very sadomasochistic, and I'm sure with sexual overtones. And ours was some navy blue leather or plastic strip, thick enough to be sturdy but flexible enough to flap a bit as it was held or used. At one point, we even had a chart on the wall that my mother made me draw by hand, since I was the artist in the family, that detailed how many spankings we get to fit the crime. How disgusting. How disgusting. Delayed obedience required 2 or 3 spankings, and she would make sure they were hard. Luckily, she didn't ask me to strip naked or anything, but she would often taunt my brothers with the vulgarity of her Spanish words. "Quieres una nalgada" was regular taunt my mother would say, and my brother would get especially flustered. It had to have given her some kind of pleasure to have us so controlled and submissive at every age growing up. I began to recall how a typical morning in my household looked like, since I was homeschooled and every day was spent with my narcissistic abuser. I imagined no reprieve, even at school, because every school day was spent with her. This was my double-edged sword. At times, my narcissistic mother was nothing but warm, caring, and fun. At least that's what it felt like growing up. I now see it as completely boundaryless environment. I now see it as completely boundaryless enmeshment. We'd sit on the couch all snuggled up together, and I'd read my history lesson to her. She'd either give helpful comments or doze off. There was a lot of her dozing off and asking me to wake her up in a few hours. I don't understand how she considered herself my teacher, and then when it was typically me reading my own books or doing my own schoolwork while she napped or did other busy work around the house. But back to my mornings. My narc mom always lacked the ability to stick to a regimented structure, which she would often try to employ after a narcissistic meltdown. She had a lot more angry rages with yelling and screaming when I was younger. I think she stopped once I realized she wouldn't be able to get away with it with us older kids. She had to maintain the victim role. Anyway, my mom would sometimes enforce a 7 a.m. early start, and we'd keep this up for about 2 days. On the 3rd day, I'd try to go wake her up, and she'd moan, "Wake me up in 10 minutes," and roll over. She wouldn't get up for another 3 hours. Yeah, so look, this method of parenting, I mean, this is just to go to show, it's about them. It's a guide to narcissism. It's a guide, okay, to their own self-indulgence, to their own arrogance, to their own sloth and laziness. And it says, and by going along with it, children are inherently bad and need to be punished. It gives them all the justification they need for this shit. So it was up to us kids to either maintain the regimented schedule without her, or to perhaps play video games instead and hope she was in one of her lazy moods. She would swing hard back and forth between being strict and raging to being too lazy and who cares and let us play half the morning. It was jolting when I'd be assuming she was in one of her lazy moods and then she'd rage out of nowhere that no one is responsible or getting anything done in this house and that she can't do it all on her own. As a child, I tried to be her comforter, her guide, even though I hate the idea of this role reversal now, especially since it was she who was making up all the rules. Speaking of making up all of the rules, I suppose I should get into the memory that I had blocked out for years. For many months now, I have admittedly been working in my mom's sexual abuse. I've been wondering if my mom's sexual abuse went deeper than just the extreme lack of boundaries she had with me. I've already mentioned in previous letters that my mom was a bit of an exhibitionist, parading around the house half naked. Oh, that's always enjoyable. How she wouldn't shut the bathroom door all the way even if my brothers were around. How she would tell me nakedness was not a big deal and that sex isn't a big deal, and would walk around and would walk in on me changing a lot without knocking. And that book, that guide, just helps her be the pig she always was. Gives them the excuse. Stay away from them. I seem to recall her doing this to my brothers too, how she would ask me to hand her a shaver or some soap while she was in the shower, and I tried not to see her naked as I passed it to her. How she had a semi-transparent shower wall installed in her bathroom instead of a solid curtain, and how she would try to talk to me while I was showering there. How she handed me down her used underwear once she supposedly grew out of them so they wouldn't go to waste, and would get offended if I told her that maybe it was weird if I used them. Gee, you think? Ugh. How she always had us share a dressing room anytime we go shopping together. How she would comment on my weight or my breast size while I would change in front of her. How she one time told me to shower naked in a public pool, in a public swimming pool shower, and to not care if the other girls or mothers stared, because she wanted me to get really clean before coming home. God, I was about 13 when she told me to do that. So with all that in mind, let's get into this blocked out memory. I could have been anywhere between 16 years of age and 20 years of age. It's a blur, and it could have happened more than once. I remember my mom caught me scratching down there while I was in the car or something, and she proceeded to question me why I was itching down there. She came to the conclusion I must have a yeast infection, even though I told her it wasn't anything unusual. She told me that when we get home, she'd ask my father about it. Oh, God. My dad's an allergist, all right. He's not a family doctor, but growing up, my mom would consult him about any little thing regarding our general health and expect him to fulfill all our needs free of charge and hassle. Well, the memory starts with me lying down on the edge of my parents' master bed, naked from the waist down. I'm staring at the ceiling or playing with the detailing on the wooden headboard, and I can hear my dad coming up the stairs. Yes, baby, I'm going. He sounded hesitant, like he didn't want to be doing this. When he came in, he didn't wear a lab coat or look like a doctor, even though that's what my mom insisted I should try to view him as, just a doctor. Except this was my dad, and I couldn't help but avert his eyes as he came into the master bedroom, and he asked me some questions like a doctor would. I don't remember being... Why would you just be sitting there waiting naked for your father, whether he's an allergist doctor or not? Your mother's another sick bitch. I don't remember being touched sexually. You don't need to be at that point. It's still sexual abuse. I don't remember any touching, in fact, but I could feel my dad's gaze as he asked me to spread my legs so he can perform a vaginal examination. It was in the middle of this that my mom walked in and looked on. Is everything okay? I remember her asking. I just stared up at the ceiling, as my dad told her he did not see anything out of the ordinary, and they stood above me far longer than was comfortable for any of us. The moment my dad told me I could get dressed again, I remember doing it as quickly as possible. For years, I blocked this memory out. At the time, I'm not sure if it's because I didn't think much of it or because part of me knew just how messed up it was. I think it's the latter. Unfortunately, there's more. After this memory came to me, another came soon after. This one was not my experience, though. It was my brother's. When my youngest brother was about 10 years old, he was sexually abused by a playmate of his. My mom began to notice that he'd come home from playing with his friend with a funny, sad look on his face. My brother wouldn't speak about what's wrong. But then she found blood spots in his underwear. Finally, she got him to open up, and he told her that his friend had been punching him in the penis and had played games and made their lips touch, etc. My mom immediately called the kid's mom and told her what had been happening. I remember learning about this after the parents had talked. The strange part, though, is that my narc mom told me they had resolved it. The abusive kid had been punished and told that what he did was wrong, and my brother was not going to be forced to talk about it. I was told not to mention it to him or make him feel bad. But it's as if nothing had happened. Within the next few years, I was encouraged to babysit for that family, and it never entered my mind what that boy, then a teenager, had done to my brother. And soon after, my mother would ask my brother why he wouldn't try to be friends with that kid again. She asked him why they couldn't get along now that they're older, and now that they all know better than back then. Ugh. Now I call bullshit. First of all, I know now enough about sexual abuse to know that perhaps this kid was abused himself, or maybe he had seen some things. Most kids don't do that stuff out of the blue. And second of all, no teenager should ever be encouraged to re-engage with another teenager who had once sexually abused them, especially since it was when my brother was old enough to remember every bit of it. But it shouldn't surprise me why my family and the kid's family were so quick to sweep everything under the rug and act like everything is fine. The kid was a pastor's kid. More narcissistic abuse under the guise of religion. And the pastor is the current church pastor of a huge mega church in my city. It's sad that this is unsurprising. I wonder who was touching. I wonder who was touching the kid who abused your brother. Well, I'm almost done with my letter, but I have one more pair of secrets to spill. My mom's family secrets. See, there are these family secrets she's forced me to keep since I was about 8 years old. And I've had to keep them from my cousins and uncle and aunt. Yes, in my mom's selfishness, she kept these secrets from her own brother and his family, who I saw weekly for the past 15 years, good give or take. First family secret, my mom and brother are not actually biological children of their father. He was a huge narcissist himself, and later on in his life exposed the truth to my mother in the cruelest of ways. She was in her 40s already and threw it in her face during one of his outbursts. "I'm not even your father." She, of course, didn't believe him at first. All her life, she had wondered why his initial warmth turned cold when she hit puberty. Probably, I don't know if it was him, but maybe he was trying to distance himself because by the time she was in her 40s, maybe your grandfather realized what a dangerous narcissistic twat your mother is, and wanted to let her know, you're no part of me. I don't know how cruel that was. Based on your mother's behavior, I don't think it is. Why would he wait until she was in her 40s to tell her that, huh? If he was this cruel narcissist. Nope. Either he began to distance himself from her because she wasn't his own blood, or because this was around the time that he himself found out about the secret. My grandma had visited a sperm donor back in the 60s because my grandpa was infertile. And I guess back then you wouldn't talk openly about pregnancy issues like that. So she got it done in secret, and I'm guessing when my narc grandpa found out, it was totally injured his ego. Whoa. Time out. Time the fuck out. The problem wasn't your grandfather. The problem was your grandmother and your mother. She goes out and gets inseminated by inseminated, okay, in the 60s, right, without his knowledge in the 60s, right. No, she fucked no, your grandmother fucked some other dude and got knocked up with it. And your grandfather's the narcissist? I don't think so. I don't think so. He rejected your mother because he had gotten to the point where he's like, fuck this shit, I don't want nothing to do with it anymore. It's not even my kid. Whether he found out then or knew it the whole time, it don't matter. He ain't the narcissist. Your mother and her mother are. My mom attributes my grandpa's narcissistic rages to dementia. But now I see quite clearly that he was just a narcissist who couldn't stand living in my parents' basement in the latter years of his life. Well, who would? Who would? If this happened later on in life, maybe it had it. Maybe it was dementia. Who fucking... Listen, you got the wrong guy. You got the wrong guy. I'm sorry, you got the wrong guy. The problem is your mother and her mother, not your grandfather. When I was 6 years old, my mom told me that my grandpa had died in a car accident. That's what she told her brother, who lived in Colorado at the time. And that's what she told everyone at the funeral. My grandpa was heralded as a World War II veteran and someone who died a sad accidental death. But what my mom told me through blubbering tears when I was 8 years old was that she had lied. Family secret number 2, my grandpa didn't die in a car accident. He committed suicide. I wonder why. I wonder if anybody drove him to suicide. He actually grabbed the family's gun and gone out into his car and shot himself. He even had left a note about how sorry it was that he disappointed everyone or something like that. The thing I now wonder is why a narc like my grandpa actually went out and did it. And I believe it's because of my grandma, who's also a narcissist. Yes. That's what I'm trying to tell you. Your grandmother's the fucking problem. Although more covert and sneaky, had drove him to that end. Yeah. It's all very sad and dark, and no part of me relishes in the fact that I had to carry these 2 secrets from my extended family for this long. My narc mom didn't want her brother to know about either of these family secrets because she told me it would crush him, but I think these are things the family deserves to know, especially since my narc grandparents are dead. I don't think it's my place to reveal all these secrets at this point, but if it ever comes down to it, this is my leverage. If my family ever tries to force my hand or take me to court, thanks lawyer brother someday, I have a cloaked dagger behind my back and I'm not afraid to use it. Well, that's about all I have for now. It felt good to get that on paper. Your commentary at this point is appreciated, since there are still days that I go back and forth and wonder if my family really was toxic or if I'm just blowing things out of proportion. Gotta love the cognitive dissonance. Thanks, Ollie, for all you do. Your stories and the stories you read are helping hundreds of thousands around the world, and I go to your videos whenever I need to own my own righteous anger. I continue to pray and think of you during this time of processing many mixed feelings. You're very strong and a lighthouse to many. Take care and blessings to you and Charlene, Rapunzel. Narcissistic family secrets. And you think you know all the secrets and you really don't. You really don't. It's a burden. The burden of carrying narcissistic family secrets. Why hide it behind your back? Why wait? Just let them know you know. Why? Why? The sexual abuse and everything they did. Look, it makes sense. From the story you told me about your father checking you for a yeast infection, the women on your mother's side of the family bully the men. They get the men to do things they don't want to fucking do. It wasn't your grandfather. It wasn't your It's the women. It's your grandmother and your mother. They're the issues. They always were. And your grandmother went to suicide, for Christ's sake, and he apologizes. That don't sound like a narcissist. Narcissists don't commit suicide. They don't. They don't. They act like they're going to commit suicide for attention. Narcissists don't commit suicide. Narcissists drive people to suicide. They don't do it. Remember that as you're sitting on these family secrets of your narcissistic family. Remember that. So, I hope that helps. Thank you so much, Rapunzel, for your contribution and story. I really appreciate it. Thank you to everybody watching. Please leave any opinions or advice in the comment section below. And again, if you want your story read on the channel, you have a topic you'd like me to cover, a narcissist you'd like to expose, you'd like to set up Skype, a phone call, have a private video made, or a Facebook live chat, or you'd like to sponsor a video like this for someone who needs help and can't afford it, or just make a contribution to the channel in general to keep it supported, growing, and successful, because this channel survives 100% on contributions from all of you guys. Without you, all of this goes away. So if you like what you see here and you want to see more videos like this, you know what to do with the PayPal and email links in the description box. Also, please like and share this video wherever you can. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't, and be sure to click the subscription bell to be notified of all my video uploads. I'm Ollie Matthews. This has been the Narcissistic Resistance. Take care.